Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday show. This morning, we are discussing rental arithmetic and whether you should be a private landlord or a limited company. Myself, obviously, Richard Cook, and we've got Jim this morning. Morning, Jim.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. We're just talking about obviously lack of sleep and dreams because too much going on in our heads. But
to be honest,
apart from that, fine.
Do you know why I've got lack of sleep now? Because I've got a £1 million deal going on now.
Yeah,
literally £1 million in funding, and I'm trying to work out the process so it all coincides for after into the next tax year.
Yeah,
I want to take advantage of transferring some of the. This is perfect. I want to take advantage of transferring some of the properties I own in our own names just now, and actually sell them to our limited company. So I keep the asset, but I get the capital gains offset as well, which is my husband and wife offset. So we'll get a capital gains allowance of about 20. I think it's about 25,000 instead of the 12,500 that you usually get. As a result of that, but I've used it this year, so I need to get it into next tax year from the 6th of April onwards. But it's perfect today because we're actually going to be talking about should you be a private landlord or limited company. So this fits in. I mean, talk about the universe and the laws of attraction and everything happening all at once, and it's like this comes up as the show, and I'm thinking I'm going through this right now. This exact scenario. I started off as a private landlord. We started off as private landlords 30 years ago, Elaine and I.
Yeah.
And then what happened, we got to a point where it was like, wait a minute, we're going into higher rate tax band here. We better start a limited company. So we actually physically started a limited company for that reason, Parker Housing Limited. And that was to do that. Because really, we don't touch really any of the money at all. And I know that sounds daft. Somebody came on the other day on some social media thing, why, out living, throwing caution to the wind and buying a Ferrari and all the rest of it. And it's like, no, that's just that's not how wealthy people think.
Yeah.
You see all the people online. Well, you see the few people online. They parade out their Ferraris, they parade out their Aston Martins, their big fancy houses, their Bentleys. We've made millions. We've gone 0 to 2 million in 3 years and 3 months and 3 days and stuff like that. But these are what I call the charlatans. These are the great pretenders. These are the people that just want to sell you a course. That's ultimately why they're doing it. This is called a sales funnel when they do that. You're at the top when you get into this. And I've actually just downloaded one of their brochures. but what it does is it captures your information. So it captures your information at the top level. It gets your name and email address into a list. And then they bombard you in the sales funnel to get you down to the bottom, to get you to buy the course. And I'm giving away all the secrets, and they'll no like me for it. This is like the guy that's in the magic circle talking about how all the tricks are done. and literally, God, dare I say I despise it. I really don't like it at all because they claim to make all their money on property, but in actual fact, to make all their money in training and selling courses. And then they go and invest it in property, most of them. That's why they managed to do it in 0 to 12 months and 0 to 2 years, because they sell all the courses, they make the money, and that provides the money to actually fund their property empire. Whereas I did it the other way around. I built the portfolio and built the empire and ran alongside my job at the same time. And then I started everything else after that. And then we're getting into the point. I mean, this is 30 years later. I'm getting to the point of actually telling people how to do it now. So what does that tell you? The experience and wisdom is probably more important to get into, to understand that mentality, than it is actually when you think about how did I just get started? Well, I'll tell you how to get started quite easily. If you just watch our wealth creation show at 6:30 on a Monday night, we'll tell you all the different things. This Monday at 6:30, we're going to be discussing how do you find the perfect tenant? How do you get the tenant actually? It's going to give you the full occupancy, which is the biggest killer in buy-to-lets. And then how do you get a tenant? It's going to give you the maximum rent as well. And then what do you do in order to make sure that person is the right person for your property? One of the key things, I mean, that is customer acquisition when you think about it. That's what our business lives and dies by, customer acquisition. It's not customer service. Don't kid yourself. If you don't have customer acquisition, you do not have customer service. That's it in a nutshell. There's no customer service to do if you don't have customer acquisition. Customer acquisition is key here. and it's actually getting the best tenant for your property.
Yeah.
But it's also discussing how you would set that up.
Yeah, finding the right tenant is such a big, an important piece of obviously the buy-to-let process. I mean, if you put the wrong tenant in or don't find the right person, it could be really detrimental to the whole process. But yeah, this morning's topic obviously relevant. Obviously, like you say, Jim, your own situation. I know there's a lot of other people's that obviously have that in their mind. And when should I change to a limited company? Should I be a limited company? I'll do a couple of good mornings before we continue. Morning, Heather.
Good morning, Heather. How are you?
And James. Morning, James.
Great to see you this morning, James. Hopefully you're out and about making the magic work, and you're
Sure
kind of preparing for the wealth creation show on the Monday night. James is a great insight, into it as well. James is very the thing that I resonate with James is we're both very detailed people. We're both very clinical and process driven and analytical, and we understand the process all the way through. So he gets me and I get him completely. And it's a very complimentary thing because he's at the start of the journey where I was, and I'm middle. Well, I've never arrived really, and I don't ever will. Somebody was actually quite surprised the other day when I said everything I do right now is preparing for the best things to come, and they're like, "What? You've not had the best things already?" I mean, most people will think that because that's obviously what they want, but no, everything I'm doing right now is in preparation for what's to come. And it's the magic happens where opportunity and preparation meet. That's it. And you have to prepare for that opportunity, but you don't know what that is yet. That's the key here. You don't know what that opportunity is yet. It's not arrived yet. It's not on your doorstep yet. So you just have to have faith in yourself as an investor and also as a private landlord in the beginning, just to get out there and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Quantity. I did a vlog the other day. Quantity is far better than quality. I could produce the best product in the world and I could produce one of them and it'll be perfect. But I could produce 100 in quantity and I'll guarantee you more than one of them will be perfect out of that. So why do you not just create the 100? And then you'll have more perfect ones. And that's another, we could be here forever.
That's a whole other show, Jim.
That's a completely different show. That's all about mindset and all the rest of it. But we do talk about that, as I said, on the Wealth Creation Show.
Yeah, tune into that on Monday. Jim and James, obviously, there's a lot of good insights on that. But yeah, back on topic for today, obviously, landlords are an essential part of, obviously, the local market in Fife. And there simply isn't enough new homes being built, and the demand for tenant is ever growing stronger. The issue with not having enough homes being built is something that we touch on a lot, Jim, and push it. And every time I think we sit down, because it's just something that needs to be reinforced continually.
And you're absolutely right about that. Now, the key here is it's not the fact that we're taking homes out of the market, because we've got the homes that are for people that can only rent and only they don't have a choice. They have to rent. And the council can't keep up with that. So that's the people that we tend to supply, or I tend to supply properties to. So it's one or the other. If you're asking me to go and sell my property so a first-time buyer or somebody else can get them, then you've got a whole lot of tenants that are actually now homeless and nowhere to go because no one's got the housing for them. So, I'm only taking up, and the council want rid of me, go and build more council houses and social houses, and I'll leave. That's as simple as that. I'm only doing this because it's a market and an opportunity I see. And when the opportunity disappears, I'll go and do something else.
Yeah, I think that the council and things do need to build a lot more affordable housing. I still think they would need to build quite a lot to push the private sector out anyway, but it's still needed.
Thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands in Scotland, right across the UK. You're talking about millions. And people say, we've got a declining population, and it's like, no, we've not. In Scotland, we've got a net migration of 20,000 people a year. I'll say that again. In Scotland, we've got a net migration of 20,000 people a year coming into Scotland, net.
Yeah,
and we need these people, regardless of what you say, because we need their skills. We need people to look after our elderly people, and we've seen the brunt of that because of the Brexit situation, where a few people have had to actually go back to their own country of origin, and as a result, our NHS and our healthcare system, our services, our hotel industry, our tourism is all suffering as a result of of what was, well, I'm not going to say a stupid policy, but it probably was stupid because most people in Scotland actually endorse being part of a bigger picture in terms of what we're doing, and see the opportunity of net migration being an advantage to our economy and strengthen our economy. After all, somebody's got to pay the taxes that will pay your elderly care. That's what it comes down to. And if you've not got anybody working at that point in time, you'll end up like one person working to fund one person that's in care, and that'll become prohibitive. So, you have to have a good balance.
Yeah,
again,
definitely.
That's another show again.
I was just going to say, it has all bit balanced, but yeah, you
can just get the question time stuff on.
You can digress into so many different topics, but back on topic. Obviously, ever since the Chancellor began phasing out mortgage interest rate relief in 2017, landlords have been wondering whether it's still possible to have a profitable buy-to-let business. I would plug in and say yes, it is. But it's a concern for landlords in Fife as much as anywhere else. Some have chosen to exit the buy-to-let market altogether, which we've seen happening over the last couple of years, slightly more. But then I think I've seen quite an influx of new landlord investors as well. And while others have decided against expanding their portfolio, and I think that there's mixed feelings from landlords and investors about what they want to do and things as well. We'd like to reverse that trend by talking about one of the biggest shifts in the property market, and landlords switching from owning their buy-to-let properties privately to buying them through limited companies. All right. It isn't an option that's always right for everyone. I mean, sometimes it's right for somebody to stay as a private landlord. As they grow, I think obviously you need to look at limited companies. And
yourself, Richard, if you've only got one or two rental properties and you're a low rate taxpayer anyway, it possibly makes absolute sense to stay where you are in terms of your portfolio, because you're not going to build any more. And you get great advantages on your personal allowance as opposed to, and we'll talk about that, you get a great advantage for your personal allowance and stuff like that in your own right. And you don't get that advantage when you're in a limited company, but you do to a degree when you can take dividends out as well. But there's a fine balance about how to do that. And I would say to most people, I mean, I'm an accountant by trade, and I understand the dynamics of it, but I'm not up to speed with completely everything. I just know what my situation is and what I do, and it's mainstream residential renting. It's no things like student lets. It's no things like holiday lets, stuff like that. Everything else to me is a shiny penny. It's just a distraction, because I stay in my lane. I know exactly what works, and I know exactly how it works and how to make it the most efficient way possible. So for people with just one or two buy-to-lets, it might not be the best option because of the prohibitive costs of actually going into a limited company.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you've just got one or two, it's probably better staying as a private landlord. But if you're a higher rate taxpayer and you'd like to build a portfolio, then there are significant advantages to obviously owning your rental properties through a limited company. So let's have a look at buy-to-let mortgages for individuals and limited companies. Now, the market for buy-to-let mortgages for private landlords is packed with loads of different products for almost every high street lender, and some have interest rates that are almost on par with obviously residential mortgages. By comparison, buy-to-let mortgages for limited companies are less common, and the market is growing as lenders play catch up with landlords setting up limited companies, but fees are still higher. So, for example, at the time this was written, for us to obviously discuss, it was a fixed rate buy-to-let mortgages for companies started at 3%, while private landlords can find deals less than half of that, as low as like 1.3%, which is a big difference. And buy-to-let mortgages for companies and individuals share the same 75% loan-to-value cap, with some rare exceptions at 80%, and variable rates are about the same. All right, and there is good places you could go on, money.co.uk and other online sources where you
I find for most landlords, for a ready reckoner, you probably go to the biggest buy-to-let lender in terms of that, and I find that the Mortgage Works is probably
Mortgage Works is good. Yeah, I was just going to say that.
I'll quickly show that, and if you show
exactly do that, that'd be good.
Can you see that? Okay.
It's just loading. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so we've got the Mortgage Works here. You can find it. You can find them on anything. You just go to their product finder. Typically, you just select buy-to-let. You select buy, you hit the button, you get the choice of all your different rates. Just tick everything, to be honest, because it gives you a huge array and you can work out which one's best for you. whether it's a purchase or a remortgage, a further advance. I bet you never knew you can get further advances still, because you can. And then there you go. It gives you a really great deal. So look at that. I mean, this is in your own right as a buy-to-let. You've got a 2-year fixed rate deal, admittedly a 2% fee. But if you're only getting a 60 grand mortgage, 2% fee is 1,200 quid. I mean, most fees are about 2,000. See, look at that.
Yeah.
They might have a minimum in there, you never know, but that's fixed at 1.14%, and that's an interest-only deal. It's like, what? So when you think about it, if you're getting $60,000 mortgage on a property, I'm going to do a quick, and folk will go, God, why is he reaching for his calculator? Because I'll be honest, and it's like I go for my calculator every single time, even though I'm an accountant by trade. So 60,000 times 0.0114 is 840. So sorry, it's 114 is 648 divided by 12. Yeah, you're probably talking about 50, 60 quid a month. So 60 grand mortgage, and you'll probably be buying for an £80,000 property, and your mortgage for the 2 years is going to be £60 a month, and you're going to be renting that for how much? 600 quid or 550. You're clearing almost, £400 to £500 after the mortgage is paid every single month to cover your overheads. How much more de-risking do you need? Because I mean, interest rates could go up to 10%, and you're still kind of thinking, well, I'm still okay to a degree. And to be honest, I talk about the strategy about interest rates going up to 10%. But it is one thing that I actually do on my spreadsheets, and that is just test that market in terms of that. But the key here as well is, look, watch when I do buy-to-let at limited company. So that was 1.14, and if I do limited company and just refresh that, select by client type, see how that changes. Look, so you're getting £1,000 still, but it's now 2.59. But to be honest, 2.59 is just double the amount. So you're paying 120 quid. So you're paying an extra 60 quid a month for the interest. And the benefit is the offset is actually, if you're a higher rate payer, it's not taken into account in your actual taxation. Whereas if it's in your own name, it will be. So you could avoid that taxation. Now, tax avoidance is okay, but tax evasion isn't. That's illegal. Tax avoidance is called proper planning. That's really what it comes down to. So hopefully that's given everybody an insight into how that works and how you can just do a quick ready reckoner.
I've got a few comments coming through, but I'm just going to this one. Duncan's jumped in morning a bit late, but he's asked a question here, and I thought we'll quickly answer this. So Duncan said, are you better sourcing your own mortgage or using a financial advisor?
No, I would use not a financial advisor, a mortgage broker. Now,
well, a mortgage broker, obviously.
Some of the best mortgage brokers. There's 2 mortgage brokers which I would find really, really good. Neil Bird is for if you've just wanted 1 or 2 mortgages, and Kessar Salimi is probably if you're doing big buy-to-let portfolio lending. So Kessar Salimi Freedom Financial is really good buy-to-let big portfolio funding. But just 1 or 2 buy-to-lets that you're doing for yourself, and you don't want anything bigger, I would go for a whole market broker, which is Neil Bird at Cara Mortgages. And James actually agrees with that. So you go for full market, because you'd be amazed at how many times you would, if you source your own mortgage, sometimes you've just got a better deal out there, which might actually pay your fees up front. It might actually pay legal fees. It might, because some of the whole of market mortgage brokers get access to deals which the mainstream lenders won't actually do to the public. I don't think as well that the mortgage works actually allow you to go through them anymore.
It's good to jump on and get an idea what kind of.
I think the mortgage works actually insist that you go through brokers now, or because they don't want the hassle of dealing with individuals. They want somebody that knows the system and understands the process. Birmingham Midshires is a really good one as well. That's owned by the Royal Bank. Mortgage Works is owned by the Nationwide, but they are the 2 biggest lenders in terms of buy-to-let. You have other ones which if your credit's no fantastic, then potentially that's where somebody like Neil Bird or Kessar can actually get you a lender which will actually fit into your scenario. Interest rate might be a wee bit higher, but still in this market it is very, very good in terms of the rates. You can see that yourself there now. I mean, even if interest rates were like 3 and 4%, if you're paying 4% a 60 grand mortgage, you're 240, you're 200 a month. If you're still renting for 550, you're clearing 350 a month after the mortgage is paid.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer still.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But like I say, it's always handy to jump on Mortgage Works and get an idea of things, but always speak to the professional, whether it be if it's financial or mortgage or things, speak to the right people. If you're not sure who they are, come to us and we'll let you know.
Yeah. And James actually talked about Accord as well as people with credit issues. Accord's a good one. Aldermore's another one that's in the marketplace for that. But again, you can get these all through people like Neil Bird and Kessa in terms of what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, so and then back on topic about obviously the level of paperwork and things and tax allowances between owning a buy-to-let property as a private landlord and a limited company. So we'll do a bit of a roundup of the main distinctions. And I think obviously firstly as a private landlord, the level of administration is very low and you simply include your rental income and expenses for your tax year with your tax return. However, you're taxed on 100% of your profits each year. Now, run through some figures, and obviously the link for the full blog on this topic, and also we'll put the podcast and things up so people could listen back. But I mean, yeah, you're taxed on 100% of your profits, and regardless of how much you intend to use them, the rates of income tax in Scotland for 2022 and 2023 are 19% after your first 12,570 to 14,732, and then 20% up from 14,000 to 25,688, and then 21% from there up to 43,662, and then 41% up to 150,000. But any income above that is taxed at 46%. Okay.
They didn't make it easy, do they?
No, I was just before I started that, I was going to say the link for this is so you could read back, and we'll put the podcast out as well, so you could listen back to that.
Yeah, they didn't make it easy at all, and this is the Scottish system. They've got several different tax bandings, and you've got to work your way out of that. Whereas the English system is quite a bit more simplified and quite easy and straightforward.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I tend just to get somebody at the end of the year and ping all my stuff over to them. What I do before the end of the year, though, as a private landlord, is I actually work out exactly where I think my profits are going to be predicted. So about now, January is when I work out, because I know what the rents are coming in every single month.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm going to be outlaying in terms of mortgages every single month. And I know everything else. It's all pretty straightforward. Yeah, I tell you what, this is boring. But I tell you what, boring pays well. But I genuinely mean that. Boring pays well. And I said it like that because everybody goes, oh, it's boring and all the rest of it. It's like, I want to create some excitement.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I get excited about the fact of what you can make and out of being bored. And I'll be bored every day rather than every other day. Definitely. Yeah. So the key here is you work out what your income coming is, what your outgoings are, because it's all the same every single month, more or less. And then you're kind of thinking, okay, I'm predicting for that. Right, okay, how can I get that down in terms of the tax bracket? Let's do some improvements. Yeah. So let's roll on and do some improvements before the end of the tax year. And that'll bring it down to that rate. Or I tell you what, let's put money into my pension. And then you'll get a pension deduction at the higher rate. Therefore, it will bring you back to a lower rate taxpayer again. So there's other ways to do that as well. And either you want to do improvements or you want to do a contribution towards your pension to bring that down. So there's ways to mitigate your tax as a private landlord. But it's no easy because the biggest killer is the interest deduction. It's no longer mortgage interest deduction does not exist anymore. So for individuals, it is just an allowance that's given by the government of a straight line basic rate taken off of your tax. So in other words, all your profits are worked out before the mortgage interest comes off. Then it's taxed at that rate. And then you get basic rate of your mortgage interest taken off of your tax bill. So that's why they say mortgage interest deduction no longer exists in its present form, what it used to be. So that's the way that's done.
Yeah. So mortgage interest relief of private landlords has now been replaced and phased out and replaced by tax credit. Fixed at the basic income rate of 20% of the mortgage interest repayments, and the new rules effectively exclude higher rate taxpayers from claiming the credit. Now, in the comments there's the link to Cara Mortgages. So we were just discussing obviously Cara and obviously Kessa. So click on that, guys, and you could have a wee look if you're needing advice on mortgage advice, then click on them. When it comes to carrying out works on your buy-to-let, now private landlords are also limited to claiming back costs of repairs. Property improvements are allowable if they are like for like basis, but not allowed if they are an addition or a significant improvement. and these will be capitalised and can be deducted against any profits on the sale. Okay. So that's private landlords. And in limited companies, so setting up a limited company is very simple procedure. You could just log on to Companies House. You've done that in a few, you've done that like a demo of that before, Jim, but it's simply click on Companies House and start the process, and it should take around about 15 minutes. Owning your company does come with extra administration, and you'll need to pay corporation tax on your profits and file annual accounts that are separate from your regular tax return. Of course, you can outsource this to an accountant, which is probably, if you're building a big portfolio, you have a limited company, you're probably advisable having the right person deal with the account side of it, which would be an accountant. The real benefit comes from allowable expenses, which include mortgage interest relief and making improvements to your property. So mortgage interest is considered an allowable expense, which means you can claim the interest only element on your monthly mortgage payment, and the capital element is not deducted. So does that all make sense? Probably not.
Oh, it's a minefield, isn't it? In terms of that. So there is a lot of allowable expenses, but there's a lot of there is. See, I tend to look at most expenses are allowable.
Mm-hmm.
The only expenses in my mind that are not allowable is capital improvements. But I deem in my mentality, I deem capital improvements, and I've always been told this as an accountant in training, is if it's adding something extra onto what you have already. So, and it's a significant amount of money. I mean, a classic example when I was training was if you decide to put a shower over the bath. Yeah. So you're putting a shower over the bath. So technically, that's a capital improvement because it's now. To be honest, the prohibitive cost of that now would deem it probably not to be a capital improvement anymore. One of them before, and this is during the war. One of them many years ago before it was changed. Was double glazing. So double glazing was deemed to be a capital improvement, changing single glazing to double glazing because it was a significant improvement on the job. But then the Landlord Review took the decision that it would be stupid not to replace your windows with double glazing if you were changing it from single to double glazing. So why, so they took the and made an amendment at that time and changed it to actually say that you're allowed double glazing improvements from single glazing as tax deductible immediately. Yeah. The great thing is pulling down your profits immediately if you're trying to look for sources to do that. Changing front doors as well, maybe changing kitchens, change kitchens like for like, so similar. Change bathrooms as well. That's all deductible now. But if you do an extension, so if you do an extension to a property, that's capital. That's not deductible against your profit straight away because it's adding value to the capital value. It's the term is, does it add capital value to significant capital value to the actual property? And the answer in most cases for a new kitchen, new bathroom, that is no. It's minor, so that's why you now get them as revenue deductions rather than capital deductions.
Yeah, there's a few exceptions, and like you say, obviously the single to double glazing thing and that now, quite rightly, obviously has been reviewed. But yeah, and then Jim, you'd said obviously about one thing to be aware with limited companies. Now, I know you said you don't touch a lot of what's in your company and things, you just let it kind of go around. But a lot of people will want to pay their seller salary or things from the limited company.
Yep.
And what you need to be aware is you will pay personal income tax on any dividends or salaries you take, but you can time your payouts to make them more tax efficient, and that's including spreading them over more than one tax year. So that's relevant obviously to most people, and obviously that's not your situation, Jim, and maybe others, but one thing to be aware, and there's ways you could like spread that out over more than one tax year, and that would be a lot more tax efficient.
The only thing I do every single year is actually just take out the basic amount that's tax free, and in the previous years it was £5,000 in dividends, and now it's been reduced to £2,000 in dividends, but I'm not interested in taking out anything else. I live in a mentality which I'm continually broke. And I don't mean that in terms of my thinking. I just really, I don't want to overfeed myself, because if this is another psychological thing. If you overfeed yourself, in other words, you reward yourself all the time and you get everything all the time, you're never hungry anymore. Therefore, you tend to not be as driven and not be
takes away that drive.
Takes away that drive and takes the edge off. And you lose that edge, and that is vital to your financial goals and your financial freedom. and for the things that you want to build for the future. So I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a big fan of the fast cars. I'm not a big fan of the luxury houses and all the rest of it. And hey, if you want that, I could show you how to do it. No bother. But for me personally, it's not something I want. I would rather give it to somebody that needs it, and help them. So give them a hand up rather than a hand out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So invest in other people and in them and in your community to let that thrive as well. And I'll be honest, it comes back to you tenfold. It's the old thing, it's like it is a lot of teachings from dare I say it, the Bible. There's a lot of teachings in there, which are a lot of these people like Tony Robbins, unfortunately the now great Bob Proctor, who was involved in The Secret, who passed away yesterday, and Norman Vincent Peale, all these people that have built all these systems and all these learnings have actually come from that root cause of all the things that have been learned before, which have actually been in all these books before, like the Bible, the Quran, and all the rest of it. All these teachings are there. You just have to pick out the good stuff.
Yeah, and I think obviously on the topic of obviously speaking about income and things, and let's look at income and investment. And there's no doubt that the buy-to-let market is moving further and further away from short-term yields and more towards long-term capital growth. And that's something that we always say, if you want to be a landlord investor and build a portfolio, this is the approach you should have.
It always has been. That's the thing. It always has been. I've never ever changed. I've never been a short-term person. I don't look at it like that, and that's why I've done what I've done over all the years, and that's why I'm still doing what I do. And I still, and a lot of people, again, I come back to saying, are gobsmacked. I don't take that much out. On occasions, I used to take out less than what I would charge a letting agent to do, and that's what I did in the past. And I just put everything back in and kept it building, and kept the wealth compounding. So you're absolutely right. It's all about medium to long term. I wouldn't say capital growth. It's going to happen anyway. I mean, ask your granny. Should they have bought property 30, 40 years ago, or 50 years ago? They were buying them for £1,000 and hundreds of pounds. And if they had bought several properties, what would they be worth now? So go back and ask that. So if you started now, what do you think people are going to say? What do you think your grandchildren are going to say in all the years to come if you start now, or your children in years to come if you start now, about you buying extra properties for wealth creation? They'll go, "Oh God, you had the foresight." And yet now at this point in time, you're thinking to yourself, property is really overpriced, isn't it? No, it's not.
Not compared to where it's going to be.
No, it's not.
That will always be the case, yeah.
Well, we were no daft. I mean, you put in 2 offers on properties for me last night. And we're looking for the result this morning, and I've been discussing with the bank about getting them over the line and doing other things at the next tax year in order to do that. And because I'm trying to now buy 6 or 7 at once, because I'll get ADS at an averaging rather than actually pay ADS 4% on every single property. I'll get an average of the 6 properties that I buy. So it saves you an absolute fortune in the additional dwelling supplement.
Yeah, to do the 6, or like you say, the 6 or 7 gives you that. So, the days of immediate high yields of 10% and more are mostly behind us, and particularly with recent tax changes. But rental property is still a sound long-term investment that produces far greater yields than savings accounts, and we all know that. And coupled with capital growth and security of bricks and mortar, then buying a buy-to-let can be the effective route to be financially free in the future. And that's what we've just obviously discussed here. One obstacle to expanding your portfolio can be the need to find the 25% deposit for each purchase, and paying income tax of 100% on your profits against the background of reduced allowances can leave dwindling returns. But I mean, it's just obviously it is a numbers game, and you need to make sure you do it right. But a limited company can be extremely tax efficient if you intend to use your profits for buy-to-lets to expand your portfolio, and the corporation tax is 19%, leaves far more to play with the higher rate than the higher rate income tax of 40%. So yeah, I think like you say, it's not for everyone. It depends what your journey is, but the limited company obviously does pose a lot of advantages when building a portfolio, if that's what you're trying to do.
It does, if it's long term, and especially if it's passing it on to your kids. If it's passing it on to your kids, then all you're doing is passing on shares, and it's the company that's got the mortgages. So there's a huge advantage there as well. And we'll talk about that in the next one a bit more. But also the tax efficiency. It depends if you're wanting to contribute towards your pension. I mean, the great uplift is you get a deduction from your tax bill as a sole trader if you're contributing towards your pension, but you also get the uplift because the pension company then claims the tax back from the government, so you get the basic rate back as well. So you don't pay the higher rate, and you get the basic rate back. I mean, it's a win-win situation. It's a fantastic way to do it. Guys, if you're following us out there, please give us a big thumbs up. We like a bit of interaction here. If you give us a thumbs up, a smiley face, or anything in the comments, it would be absolutely brilliant, because we do like to know it. We're going in the right direction. We're telling the right people the information. And if you're opportunistic and you're a bit risky about this, go and give it a share. Actually tell other people that there's people actually making money out of this.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to obviously the type of things that we're discussing, it's things that we get asked quite a lot, and it's subjects that obviously some people, when they starting out in their buy-to-let journey and things, aren't quite sure about, and it is questions that are difficult to work out on your own. You need to have the right people. Heather says totally there, but yeah. When you add up the savings on mortgage interest reliefs and income tax and increased allowances for improvements, it's not hard to see how much faster your pot for expansion can build, and with less and less needed for your savings. We're getting a lot of thumbs up here, so that's good. And as mortgages are paid off, you'll have plenty of options to explore your tax advisor over how to make the most of your portfolio income for your retirement, either they are shared dividends or selling all or part of your company. So let's have a wee look at property sale and transfer, and like you say, obviously, how that works when.
Actually, just before we leave that, I was looking for it this morning, but I actually got a email from the Bank of Scotland this morning about the new interest rates that you're getting on your account. And it was like 0.1% interest. And I think, well, you were getting nothing before, but you're now getting 0.1%. But that's only because interest rates the base rate's gone up to 0.25% or something, or 0.5%. I don't even ken what the base rate is, to be honest. It's no really in my psyche, because I've got a huge amount of cover in terms of interest rate growth before I need to even have any concern. And the key about that is, and I'll tell you people about that, the key to do that is because most people will go to the wall before it even gets to me. So the government at some point will either step in, or we're all going the same way. So it will no make no difference. So the reality is, I always make sure I'm running faster than the other person that was with me. So if anything happens, they're first in line to get caught. I've always lived by that lesson. Make sure you're doing something someone else isn't doing to keep ahead of what they're doing, because if anything happens out of your control, like interest rate rises, like the government puts legislation in for rent controls, things like that as well. If you've mitigated towards and worked all that out, how to mitigate your circumstances, then when things like that, if they do ever come in, your quid's in. If they don't come in, your quid's in. You're even better.
It's a safeguard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. That's some good advice, Jim.
But if you're only getting 0.1% in the bank, what on earth are you doing with your money in the bank? Inflation's sitting at 5.5% or something like that. For every time and every year, you're losing 5% of your income if it's sitting in the bank doing nothing. So you can either invest it in property, you can either invest it in a property fund, and we'll give you a fixed rate return, as well as a property as a share of the profits as well from the fund. Or you can just go and spend it. You'd probably be better off spending it than letting it sit in the bank, because at least it's no eroding in value. But spend it on something that's an asset more than anything. Yeah. And I'll be honest, your home isn't an asset.
Your own personal home.
No, your home's not an asset. We talked about this the other day. It's like property prices have gone up 117,000 in the last 20 years or whatever it is for people that have bought their house. And it's like, well, it's neither here nor there, because the reality is you're just going to sell your house and buy another house at the same value. So the increase in value you've got is nothing unless you actually realise that asset and don't actually buy anything else. That's the only way you're going to make any money out of that, your own house, or you're adding value on the way and then doing something that way. As you upgrade. But let's go into property sale and transfer.
Yeah, property sale and transfer. So at first glance, it's not entirely obvious whether you're better off as an individual or limited company when selling your buy-to-lets. But as you'll see, there is no one bargaining chip that only companies have. Selling a privately owned buy-to-let immediately attracts capital gains tax, which is now the capital gains tax is an important one, which is currently 28% for higher tax payers and 18% for basic taxpayers. So everyone has a tax-free capital gains allowance of 12,300. So you only pay capital gains tax on profits above that. But with the gain added to your income for the year, it could push you into a higher tax band for income
This is
tax.
key here. So let me talk about this.
Yeah.
So if you are husband and wife and you decide to sell one of your buy-to-lets and it's maybe in one of your names,
Yeah.
you can opt to give part of that before it actually finally sells to your partner and use their capital gains as well. So rather than have 12,300 in capital gains for the year, you'd have 24,600 in capital gains allowance for the year by doing that. And you could choose what proportion you want to sell or you want to give to your partner. So, you know, for example, I think a few years back, I actually just chose 30% to go to Elaine or to me, and I would keep 70% or vice versa. And that way it worked out when I worked out the final bill that we weren't really paying that much tax. We were mitigating our circumstances. So we were just taking advantage of one or the other person's allowances. Again, perfectly acceptable to do.
Yeah.
So that's a nice
legal sort.
Aye, but as well, you have to work out, do you want to straddle 2 tax years? So we had maybe 2 properties to sell. So we sold one on the 5th of April and did it that way. And then we sold the other one on the 6th of April. So we got 24,600 allowances on the 5th, and then the 6th of April, we got 24,600 allowances on there. So we got 48,000, 49,200 in capital gains allowances because we straddled the 2 tax years, the 5th and the 6th of April. So that was another way to do it. So there's real advantages to do that. The 18 and 20% rule, 18 and 28% rule as well. You could work out as well based on that whether it's actually better to do it as well based on the profit share as well. So you could work out that, and so it is a wee bit of minefield, and it takes a wee while. But a very skilled accountant could actually work out these scenarios for you and give you projections of what it would be.
That's what I was just going to say. It sometimes isn't always clear, but there is ways around it. But speak to the right person, and they should know.
You work out what, if I do this, if I do that, what will the tax bill be? If I do this, if I do that, what will the tax bill be? So what do I need to adjust to get that tax bill down further? If I can adjust this and just that'll come down to that. Oh, that's the right solution. So I'm going to transfer that amount to there and that to there and that to there, and that'll all work out perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, to some people might think, "Oh, that's if it's clear as mud," but there is a methodical thought process in it all. And if you're struggling, speak to the right person.
Martin actually makes a good point. Can I check if I'm hearing you right? Capital gains on property sale will potentially take you into a different tax bracket. Absolutely, Martin.
Yeah.
So what happens if you're a high rate taxpayer and or you're just on the cusp of being a high rate taxpayer and you get a gain and it pushes into a higher rate as a result? Therefore, you'll pay capital gains tax on 28% rather than the 18%. That's what will happen. And it's 2 rates. Now, the word of caution here. Capital gains rules possibly might be getting simplified soon, and the gain, the allowance might actually be getting taken down to 5,000. And then also, what might happen is the capital gains 28 and 18 will be changing to indexation. So if you look up the Office of Tax Simplification, round about November 2019, they brought out a white paper suggesting to the Chancellor that they simplify the tax for capital gains, and it would take into account and raise another 19 billion in tax revenues. But the landlords that have held their properties for a short period of time, in other words, after 2000 onwards, will actually be worse off under these rules with the way they worked out in general. If you've held your houses before the year 2000, you're probably better off on this change, but it's going to come soon because it's been sitting in the ether there, and he's got a golden opportunity to raise another 18 billion, 19 billion in tax revenue to pay back the debts. So I wouldn't be surprised if it appeared in the budget now. So if you're thinking of selling your house as a portfolio, sell it now. And if you're selling a portfolio, I'm buying, by the way. So just thought I'd put that out there. Yeah,
just plug that in there. Yeah. But yeah, so some good info there, Jim. But something to be aware of is limited companies don't pay capital gains tax. So if you have a limited company or you're thinking about that, and that's the option you're going to be taking,
You don't get the allowance either.
yeah, all their profits, regardless of whether they come from rental income or selling property, attract corporation tax, which is currently 19%. So you can also claim back purchase costs like stamp duty and legal fees, along with any capital improvements you've made to the property, although a limited company would probably have already claimed these against those improvements as they were made, as we discussed earlier. So I think let's have a wee look at inheritance planning. I think this is quite a good topic, and a lot of people, if they're building a portfolio for the long term, and then obviously to leave for their families and things as well, to continue with, or do you know what I mean, and leave it as their inheritance.
Yeah.
So an aspect of buy to let that really gets any attention is inheritance tax. And the way you own your investment properties can have profound effects on the amount of tax paid by your beneficiaries. So if you intend to keep your buy-to-lets as a business to pass on to your children or anyone who isn't your husband or wife or civil partner, owning them as a limited company can have a real advantage. And inheritance tax is currently 40% and is payable on anything over a tax-free threshold of 325,000. This rises to 500,000 for passing on to your children, grandchildren, and estates worth over 2 million. Okay. But a limited company, you can choose to make a real family enterprise by making your beneficiaries shareholders. And Jim, you touched on that earlier. And this is a good way. That's a good way to pass things on. Whose controlling interest grows over time, and if more than 50% of your business includes buying land to build rental homes on, the build-to-rent sector is most definitely worth exploring. And the company may also be eligible for business property relief. And this can reduce your inheritance tax on qualifying assets by 50%.
Yeah. Well, look at the classic example as well about the shareholders thing. I just said about the tax-free exemption of £2,000 for every individual on dividends.
Yeah.
So if you've got all your kids as shareholders, then you can go you can pay them the tax-free dividend every single year, and then subsequently they've got to pay digs.
Yeah.
So am I suggesting that possibly you get it out that way and they have to pay digs to you to pay it back? That's the sort of thing that could be mitigated as a result of that. Perfectly legal to do when you think about the logic of that. So there's ways and means to do this tax efficiently in terms of getting the best advantage out of that. But definitely inheritance tax planning. Here's a classic example: is the mortgages in a sole trader are all in your name.
Yeah.
So they're all in your name. So what happens is when you die, and we'll just talk about that. We didn't want to be airs or graces about passing away or going over the bridge or whatever. You die. Yeah. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
You're out. You're exit. Bye-bye. I'm away. Cheerio. Adios. All that. So when you go, immediately everything stops. Therefore, your mortgages all get realised. The end, because you've no longer got a contractual relationship with the bank. So therefore, the bank then seek to get the money back, and therefore they want them to sell the properties. Now, if you've got mortgages like that, then immediately your income stream has actually stopped. If that's the case, a lot of people want to pay their mortgages off and say, "Oh, I really want to pay my mortgages off and just be debt free and all the rest of it." I mean, if you're still getting mortgages at 1% and 2% and you're making a 15% net return, why on earth would you want to pay them off? I just don't get that still. It's that it's almost like you're planning to die. The way people do that, it's like, I'm planning to die, and it's like, well, why? Why do you just build it to a point where it actually is an unlimited company, and it's the company, the legal entity is the company, has the mortgages in their name, not you. So therefore, if you've got shares, it's the shares that pass to your children, but the mortgages aren't realised as a result because it's in the legal entity of the limited company. So then the asset is protected, the mortgages and lending is still in place because it's through a legal entity in its own right, the limited company, and your siblings and your family still continues to enjoy the benefits and fruits of your labour long after you're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the perfect way to do it. Whereas everybody works towards, I'll just sell it. And then once I sell them, eventually when I retire, I'll be able to help you with this and I'll be able to help you with that. And it's like, why? The best thing you could do for them is actually keep the asset and actually just roll over in a limited company to your children and have them with the protection of having an income every single month. Therefore, they can do what they want to do. I've said that to my kids. Hey, go and do what you want to do. If you like to volunteer and it doesn't pay you anything for volunteering for the rest of your life, you know you've still got an income coming in regardless, because it's passive. It's generated by this machine that I've built.
That you set up for the future.
It prints money. That's it. So it just prints money. So you can go do anything. If you want to go and climb a mountain, go and climb a mountain. Nobody's. You've got no ties anymore. Now, the key here is a lot of people, everybody has this mentality about, but if you give your kids far too much, they'll just take it, they'll be spoilt brats, and they'll take it for granted. And it's like, I can assure you, if you bring your children up the right way, they'll never be like that at all. Your children are a reflection of what you do. They're not anything else, and that's what happens. So they'll not go out and they'll not buy fast cars and Ferraris and all the rest of it, because they've seen how you operate, and you get like the people you associate with. That's really what it comes down to. Sadly, I'm a carbon copy of my father. But I tell you what I have done though. I say sadly, no, really. I mean, I love the fact that I now sometimes, sometimes it's like I hear myself saying things like, "God, that's my dad," but I learned a huge amount from him at the time, and I still learn a lot from him now. But I learn a lot what to do, and then I also learn a lot of what not to do, because I realize I see them as I'm a great believer in learning from wisdom rather than experience, because experience costs a lot of money, because that's going through the process and finding out it doesn't work. If you've got somebody that's done it already and they've got the wisdom, then I will pay some of them for that wisdom to understand how they do it. So I will buy that person's book. I will possibly enroll in that person's course, because I know they're going to add true value to what I do in terms of what I'm doing it, because I know they've got a track record. It takes me a long time to work out if somebody's got a track record before I actually commit. That's the key here. I don't just jump in. So I sit and look at somebody, and I read somebody, and I listen to somebody, and I'm at the top of the sales funnel, but I'm very, very curious about not going down that. So I'm like, got my hands at the side of my leg. I'm not going down this funnel till I'm ready. So I'm kind of like that. And then once I commit, I know this is the right person to train me, the right person to get advice from, because I know they've got the track record in the field that I'm after. Therefore, I start to learn from them, and I learn from them quick. I'm like a sponge. I absorb everything I can about them and what they're doing and how to do it. And that's how I accelerate my progress to the next stage. So that's the key here, I would say. Make sure you get the right advice from the right people.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, if somebody's successful in what they do, and you're obviously on the same journey, take a lot from them. Definitely.
Yeah. So I definitely think you're absolutely right in terms of inheritance tax planning. Yes, it just depends on what you want to achieve out of it. But I don't buy into the fact that, you're going to get all this when we go anyway. And it's like, well, why do you not just leave it as it is rather than actually realize the asset and actually keep it producing income and actually appreciate it in value, and then pass it on to them? And the limited company form is the best way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, tax is a supremely complicated area, and what's right for one person and company isn't necessarily right for another. So we do always recommend speaking to tax advisors and things about your own situation, because, like I say, it does differ.
Can you change your ongoing mortgage from a personal to a limited company, or would you have to sell it to a limited company? Well, what I had to do, that's what I've had to do, Phil. I had to sell it to the limited company and actually realise that mortgage and take out a new mortgage with a limited company. It's unfortunate, but I'm one of these people that got caught with all that when it all changed. So I've had to do it over a period of time with having so many properties in their own name.
Duncan's asking there, can you swap mortgages into a limited company? Well, there's your answer, Duncan, as well.
You can't if it's personal. You have to, because the limited company in legality is treated as an individual. It's almost like it's a person. So it's a legal entity in its own right. And all you are is the director of that company, which is the steward of that company you're classified as. So you're there to oversee and make sure the responsibility is actually implemented for the benefit of the shareholders, who are actually the true owners. So that's how the legalities of a limited company setup work. It's like an individual in its own right. Hence the reason why that individual will go for the rest of its life, and legal entity wise, and also the bank as well, and you can just pass it on to your children.
Yeah, and that is a lot of people's. That's the long-term plan. So that's the kind of thought process you have to have. I think that to round things up a little for what we spoke about today, I mean, so for portfolios larger than 2 properties, owning them as a limited company can be an excellent long-term holding solution, with significant tax advantages and during your ownership and for inheritance planning. So there's plenty to consider. And if you'd written off buy-to-lets as a no longer worth it, then obviously today's show's obviously proved that wrong. I think that the market just now, we spoke earlier about a lot of buy-to-let landlords exiting the market and selling up, and I've seen a lot of it, but I've seen a lot of new, the lot of new investors coming into the market has far outweighed that, and I think I work with quite a lot of them. A lot of these are on to here today, and it's good to see that. And I think the market
makes a good point. Sorry for interrupting. So would it be worth saying that moving the property from a sole trader to a limited company could attract LBTT, which is land and buildings tax? If it's over 140,000, he actually says, so he's perfect, and that's why the Fife properties and what we buy are so great. But it also attracts EDS, the 4% duty for second homes. You don't get away with that. So that's why I'm looking to transfer over 6, because then if you've got, for example, say in the real world, typical example is every property attracts, they're all 100,000, 6 of them. Therefore, every single one of them is going to cost you 4,000 to transfer. Now, in the real terms, if you've got 5 of them, it would cost you £20,000. If you've got 6 of them, it would cost you £4,000. How did that go from 20,000 to 4,000? Only because you bought 6 or more at the same time. So if you do 6 or more at the same time, it's the averaging of the 6 or more that you actually pay in stamp and additional dwelling supplement. If you do 5 or less, it's every single one you'll have to pay 4% on. So hence the reason why I'm looking to transfer some of mine and actually buy additional ones before just into the new tax year. So it mitigates that additional dwelling supplement. Just a wee point on that as well about the additional dwelling supplement and buy-to-let. Don't let that put you off in property investing. Property prices have grown 14.8% in Fife over the last year. Do you really think 4% put anybody off? Because they've just made 10.8% over and above that. And every single increase in years to come after that will be right on top of that as well. So why would 4% put you off? It doesn't put me off at all, because I'm a medium to long-term investor. And as well, it's the rent return as well. So if you don't buy it, you're not making any rental income out of it. You're not making any income out of it. So you're losing the income as well. So that's even worse, because that's about sometimes a 15% net return. It's like, so you're going to lose a 15% net return as well, and an increase in property prices, which is effectively 25% in 1 year, because you didn't want to pay 4%, you skin flint. It's like get that out of your head. Think wealth.
I think obviously it's inevitable, but like you say, like accumulating your sales together, like we've been doing with your stuff, Jim, for the 6 or 7 that you're going to do, then obviously there's ways and means to reduce that. But
if you're on the same page as this guy, give us a big thumbs up, smiley face, whatever you want to do. I've been told an angry face actually gets you more traction. An organic reach, because obviously,
so if we see any angry faces, we'll know that it's to get us traction.
and we were doing that at one point in time. We were running about giving each other angry faces because we thought we'll get you more traction, and we're just having an internal joke between ourselves. And everybody else is going, how come you're getting so many people angry faces on this? And it's like, we're doing it deliberately because it gets more social reach, because it's seen as a negative, and apparently negative news gets better results. People want to engage with that more because it's negative, because that's how we think as a society. So that's it, guys. That's the thing. Winding up.
I'm going to round it up there and just see, obviously, what mortgages, finance, and tax and everything that we could digress, and there's so much to discuss. But obviously, we'll round it up there. There is links in the comments there to mortgage advice and things. Come back to us, guys. Let us know if there's anything that you want tips or advice on or to discuss. We are
final thing for me is portfolios larger than 2 properties. Owning a limited company can probably be the best benefit for you. But there's a big minefield here as well. You've got Richard, myself, and you've got myself. You've got James on the Wealth Creation Show as well. We're all people that understand that dynamic and understand where we're going. We're all at different stages. We've all got expertise in different areas. And so utilize that as much as you can. It's free advice, for goodness sake. You're getting advice from a multimillionaire for nothing. It's like, and on that note,
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Right, guys. Thanks for listening. See you later.